All right. Hey, everybody. Welcome back to the channel. This is Rob here at Smirking Gun, and we're back revisiting another show that we talked about years ago. Friend of the channel, Adam, reached out to me after we did The Man in the High Castle. A little while after. It was thanks to him that we went back and looked at Man in the High Castle, and thanks to his suggestion to look at this, we are now going to revisit the series Devs from 2020 that was on Hulu. A show that I noticed that after the first two episodes was week to week, um, but I watched it all in one go and made one video. Probably not all in one day. I rewatched my review of it after I was asked to look into this, just like I did with The Man in the High Castle, because the fourth season of that, I only made one video. Um, and I'm sure that at the time, maybe I could have made extra videos for both of these shows. I don't know why I chose not to, but maybe I said in the other videos, I don't know. But I said once again, if I re-look at this show and I find that there could be more than just, if there is an episode to episode amount of content that I think I can uh, get something out of, I will do it. And I watched it, and I have at least one episode for sure full of tight notes to look at. Now, if you're not familiar with devs, devs, what is devs? Well, I'll tell you what it isn't. It's not devs. Anyway, it's a show about a software engineer named Lily whose boyfriend goes to work at her company called Amaya, and at her tech company, Amaya, computer company, uh, she there's an offshoot called Devs. Very mysterious. No one knows what they do there, and only certain people go in there to work. And once they're in there, basically they're on the moon. All right, and you'll never know what's going on. It's a special secret project. Something happens that sets off this chain of events that has to do with everything that they're doing there at Devs. And it's got an amazing cast. It's got an amazing creator. And every time I think about doing something about Alex Garland's, man, I like I could talk about the beach no problem and not feel like weird about like the adaptation of his book being different and all that stuff. The beach is pretty straightforward, even if it is Danny Boyle and it has like a lot of kind of cool imagery. But as Alex Garland's own film career as a director and a writer still has gone on, I always just feel really intimidated. Like, not like less more like when I first saw Inception, everybody was like, "Oh my gosh, it's so deep and dense." But once you really think about it, it's really not that deep and dense. It's just there's a lot of layers to it that make it seem way more intense intellectually. But when I look at something that Alex Garland does, it all has to do with like human beings, uh, how we are, what we are, why we do what we do. And I always feel like there's a little bit of Kubrick in Alex Garland stuff, a little bit of Lynch in Garland stuff, David Lynch. And I always just feel, I'll just say, I always feel a little dumb going into one of his movies or shows, because a lot of it has to do, there's a lot of technical stuff. It's basically like if you watch the X-Files and you hear Dana Scully say all these things in an autopsy room and you're like, okay, I'll just take your word for it. Basically it's that. You know what I mean? When they get all technical and I'm like, I can't even pretend to know what you're talking about, except maybe it has to do with this. So like, but I think it's also not as deep as I'm making it out to be. Once in the end, what is it really about? It's still about all those things, but it is like wrapped up in a more simple murder mystery. But the first episode is a little daunting to try to understand everything they're doing. I did take a lot of notes, a lot of a lot of stuff. I broke it down into like 7 sections kind of like I did with Man in the High Castle, where that I kind of did by characters or groups. This I'm just kind of going by, okay, this chunk is about this chunk is about that. Basically, kind of scenes or arcs in an episode. Um, and this will probably be a longer video since it is like the first episode, and we'll talk about the cast and all the different little things that I've noticed in this first episode. So, uh, yeah, Alex Garland. I mean, he did The Beach. He wrote 28 Days Later, another Danny Boyle directed movie, Ex Machina or Deus Ex. Yeah, or is it? Yeah, is it Ex Machina or Deus Ex? I think it's Ex Machina with Oscar Isaac and Domhnall Gleeson and Alicia Vikander. Wow, I pulled those names out of my butt, and they're not hard names to remember. It's just when I didn't have them like in my brain before, thinking I was gonna have to talk about them at all. I can't believe I can sometimes pull them out of my ass. He also did Annihilation. There's a movie called Men that I have not seen that I really want to see, but I'm kind of afraid to, because there's also a movie from the 90s called In the Company of Men. That's a Neil LaBute film. And if it's anything like that, oh boy. He did Devs, and he just did that Civil War movie that actually I have not seen. I have not seen it. I wasn't going to go to the theater for it. I don't go to the theater much for anything, but I am very excited to see it. Annihilation, I think, was like, I was that one person who just, I don't know, I was a little too stubborn to sit there, and I don't know, I felt like it was above my head, and I probably just need to watch it again. I probably just need to be in a different mindset. A lot of times that's what can do it for me. But Devs is, in the end, like, you have this computer company that's trying to do something basically impossible, but they've crunched the numbers, and what they're trying to do there is something that you would that and the reason I'm bringing this up is and kind of like what Goldblum says in Jurassic Park, of when we were thinking about what we could do, we didn't think about whether or not we should. And it's the creation of technologies that are unbelievable, groundbreaking things, but at the same time, when you know certain things, it kind of takes the magic out of the universe. And sometimes it's be careful what you wish for. You might just find out what's at the heart of things. And how does that change you as a person? And is that just something you accept, or do you try to improve on that? And you go, nuh-uh. Do you still struggle against what in this story is kind of like the things can only really have gone one way kind of scenario? And at the heart of it, it's why make something that they're trying to make here? What is the point? And this is it's a mystery, but it's also like getting into the heart of what makes us who we are and why we do the things that we do. A lot of these characters, in fact, Nick Offerman's Forrest talks about that later, about why we do things and how we end up where we end up. And so, really, without further ado, let's get into this. First, we're going to talk about I loved the freaking music for this show. It feels very much like I'm watching Mass Effect. I'm listening to like the Mass Effect soundtrack. It's really cool. And then, of course, Alex Garland writes and directs. And then for the cast, we've got a bunch of people that have really either been around for a while, or big up-and-coming actors like Sonoya Mizuno, who plays Lily Chan, the main character. You got Nick Offerman, who's basically the other main character as Forrest. Allison Pill as Katie. Allison Pill has been everywhere from The Newsroom, Scott Pilgrim. She's great. Kaylee Spaney, who's another huge up-and-coming actress who's worked with Alex Garland before. She's been in a lot of different things lately. She plays Lyndon. who's not really in this. You just see her once. In fact, her and Stephen McKinley Henderson, they're both in this just briefly. You just kind of see their faces at the place that where Sergey works at Devs. You got Carl Glussman, Sergey, who really this is his episode. Everything that happens is set off because of this character. And I remember thinking when I first watched this, I had kind of like attitudes about like the characters of this show, and maybe it was because of things that were going on in the world. But I sat down and even though I know like a lot of the details, the big details of the story beats, and I knew what Sergey was all about already going into this, I watched it from the perspective of just Sergey being a person, what his arc is and his motivations and why he's doing what he does. And that's also like a big part of what this show even is about, is why is Sergey doing it? Why is Forrest doing it? Why is Lily doing it? Why is Katie doing what she does? Getting to the heart of that is really about like kind of like what Devs is all about, which is kind of crazy because you're talking about it's like I want to tell you all the secret for anybody who hasn't like figured it out already. I mean, I guess it's not really a secret if you just pay attention to what the show's giving you. Let's see. Yeah, and then you have Jen Ha as Jamie. He's introduced late in the show or the first episode. Zach Grenier as Kenton, who was he's been a character actor forever. I love this actor. He's absolutely terrifying on this show as the security officer, the head of their security, I guess, named Kenton. Jefferson Hall as Pete. I believe that's the homeless man outside of Lily's apartment. Linnea Berthelsen as Jen. She's Lily's friend. Amy Mullins as Anya, I think, is another one of her friends. Same with Janet Mock, who plays Senator Lane. Okay, I don't think she's one of her friends. And then Georgia King, Leanne, who I don't think we've even met yet. So it's a pretty small cast, a pretty tight little group of people in this mystery. There really isn't a lot of reason to have a giant cast in a story like this. So when we first jump into this story, we have like all these no context images, which was like right off the bat, I was like, oh God, all right. Am I gonna have to? I think the challenge is like, am I supposed to figure out the metaphor? Am I supposed to figure out like the symbolism? And as much as I like to discover things, it's like I always feel, I think it's the fear of being wrong about that symbolism and being wrong about that metaphor and having people just tear you to shreds over the fact that you were wrong. There's that fear that we have of like, I think I know what I'm talking about, and you make a whole video about it, and then somebody goes, actually, if you look at this right here, it pretty much pulls the thread out of that sweater, and so we get these like no context images. We got Nick Forrest, played by Nick Offerman, looking, he's in the forest. He's surrounded by like these halos in the trees that make it. It's a very like this, like the avatar that I have up here. He's looking at the image of what looks like a little girl on a screen on like a pylon. And then they shoot to a whole bunch of people in a park overlooking the city of San Francisco. And then we pan in to a homeless man having like an episode of drinking and rage on the street. And then it's like the Golden Gate Bridge. And then there's this guy doing like moves and he's like yelling, like it's like yoga yelling. And then it goes back to Nick's face. And then it goes to Dev's. And I was like, okay, the show's already coming right out and being like, I don't know. Again, what am I supposed to be looking for? And I'm thinking I'm supposed to see like what he's talking about in the series anyway, of like predetermination. I think there's something about that in this first scene, but I'm not 100% sure. And this is one of those times where, yes, anybody in the comment section who has done a lot of deep dives and has decided that Devs is the show that the hill they want to die on and talk about for the rest of their life, this would be a monumental help if you guys put any comments in the comment section about this show, because I would love to hear what everybody's takes are on this. So the second part is we're introduced to Lily and Sergey, played again by Sonoya Mizuno and Carl Glossman. When they first start talking, I was like, I guess I gleaned that they're talking about cybersecurity. Um, he has a job in one thing, she has a job in another thing, and he's questioning her about things, not pressing, but asking, and she's just like any good girlfriend would. She's just she's telling him things. He's also a like he is trying to tell her how to do her thing, and she corrects him on that. And so I do at the front, we know they're in cybersecurity or something like that. That they all work. She's a software engineer. She works for Amaya. He also works for Amaya, but doing two different things. There's the homeless man out on the stoop who's laying there. I'm trying to as I'm watching this, I'm trying to find what's he mean? What's this character gonna be about later? Is this it's part of the problem with knowing some things going into a show, remembering some things and not remembering all of them, or going in completely cold. So now I've got just enough information to always be driving me wild every time there's a scene that I can't quite remember why it's there, or a character, or what they're going to do with that character. Because right now I'm like, okay, the homeless guy, there has to be a point. Is he's kind of being a little I don't know, the dialogue here is a little be all you can be, young, lovers, and it just doesn't sound very natural. But I don't think that all the dialogue in this is supposed to sound that way. I think there are supposed to be those kind of purposeful mantras, like be all you can be, or any kind of saying that's symbolic. Now they roll in on the shuttle bus to Amaya, and this is where we first see the giant statue of this little girl out in the middle of the woods. I guess this was a digital effect. They didn't actually build a statue that big. That this was just part of something that came out of the imagination of Alex Garland's mind when he thought up this story. And this is symbolism here, but it's also literal. It's this little girl. What does she represent? It's got to be important to Forrest in some way. So if it's a little girl and a grown man built it, and you don't see no little girl around, you figure that this was somebody important to him, and this is some wild way to remember her, to make her bigger than life, to make it so that every time you look, you can't not see her. So if you can't not see her, right, except for maybe closing your eyes, turning around, whatever, it also feels a little bit like punishment, or a harsh reminder of don't ever forget me. I don't want to ever forget you. So in order to do that, I'm going to have a reminder of you wherever I go. Now, as they arrive, and this is a quantum computing company, by the way, which uses stuff that I do not understand. And look, I should have taken different classes in school. What can I tell you? Maybe I should just get the quantum computing for dummies book at the library or something. But in the third moment here, we have the meeting that Sergey has with Forrest and Katie. They've got a group that is set to do a presentation for Forrest, and by the end of this, it's a huge amount. We get to see kind of what they do there, at least his division, and how this leads to him being asked to be in devs. Forrest as a character is very much there's this bit of a disconnect to being somebody probably with, with that much money. There's a, the Elon Musk factor of like people want to know these people, and people think they're likable and other things, like, like they are just people. But if you've ever been around someone with a lot of money, and I mean a lot, there is like there a disconnect, at least in my experience. And so there's like this guy with an idea, this guy who can be one of the lay people, right? He remembers, he had ideas. It's how all of them start. But then after a while, you have all this extra information in your brain. And I guess the disconnect is not always intentional or harm or done out of like to do anybody harm. I think you just only have so much room in your brain. And when it's jam packed with certain things, a lot of other things get put away. And it's not always easy to access that and suddenly be the old you again when you've been shoving your all this, what you consider to be the most important information to drive you forward in your company or whatever. So he's also dealing, you've got the fact that this kind of person does deal with government entities that want to make, want to threaten government oversight on these places. And it's it's one of those things, again, when you know about the story and what they're doing here and the secret to the secret nature of their work. Yeah, I'm sure that behind the scenes there are people in the government and other places trying, in other countries, trying to figure out how to get into what they're doing and knowing. And that's another part of this episode, is that very real security threat to these people. But I look at it very indifferently to whether or not their information should be protected or not. Like, I'm just going to look at it as a bunch of people all trying to scramble to steal the work of someone else, and not really even know what it is they're stealing or why. Just knowing that it's out there, it's secret, and you don't know it, and you're another government or a country that knows about this secretive thing that you just have to know to make sure that it's not, I guess, about some way to hurt your government or country. Or will this advance the place that's doing it past you? And if that is the case, is that a danger to you not to have it? It's so many things. Like, even talking about it, it feels like you could end up talking endlessly just about that if you were somebody who had that kind of knowledge. Well, what they're trying to do is copy these nematodes, basically mapping neurons, copying brain patterns, predicting what an organism will do. In this, it's like very simple, like microscopic level stuff where they can predict what this neuron will do for 30 seconds. All of a sudden, it is in complete this fake or created artificial version of this neuron actually will pattern itself off of a real neuron. But after 30 seconds, it can't control it because the numbers of trying to predict the future of even this small organism. And what a great way to show the massive, like, insane amount of data that would go into mapping an entire brain to predict what it would do. This is just a neuron, and it can't hold it for more than 30 seconds before it goes all. It's not like a horror movie where the micro, it suddenly goes out of control and the microscope explodes and it starts to expand or some shit. No, it's just, it is what it is. And the question is, okay, well then, if you can only go for 30 seconds, how do you fix it? What is the cause of that? And again, cause, effect, reasons. How did we get here? I also love that he's just like munching on like leaves, like leaf lettuce or spinach or some shit. Like, Like, there's another thing of like, this guy clearly has gotten information that you should probably do this for this reason if you want to live to be a million or something. Um, but they say, look, the numbers to do this, like what I just said, is so impossible that it's in the insanity that he's trying to describe isn't describable of how big the numbers are. You just couldn't ever get there. Which is crazy because you could go, well, I can imagine quite a bit. I just got to put a bunch of zeros. But what do you even call it? I don't even think we have names for those numbers. We might have like categories or something, but I don't think we even have names for those numbers. And if we do, I don't really need to know it in the comment section, but I mean, I'm pretty sure that there probably is somebody who has either worked it out or is working on it as we speak. But then the other solution is a multiversal problem, right? The multiverse means that out there somewhere there would be another universe that would completely match up to ours in every possible way. It's just not this one. I do like the response to that he's like, I don't like the multiversal theory. And it made me realize I thought that this show feels older than it is, but it really isn't. It's after Endgame came out. And being someone who told everybody, I warned people that the multiversal thing after they did it in Marvel did it. I said this is going to be their excuse to use multiverse for fucking everything and not just Marvel, but everyone. And in 2020, Nick Offerman says, "I'm not a fan of the multiversal theory," and I've got to kind of say that I'm with him because I feel like it has been used as a crutch. But I said it was going to be. I said as soon as you open up that door, that just gives them the reasons to explain away any bullshit story issue. Oh, it's just not our universe. But the best part of this scene is Allison Pill's just crazy, creepy, blank expression, man. She is so good at it. She's an incredible performer, but I like to talk about face acting a lot. One of the first people I talked about when I talk about face acting is I talk about a guy who plays Homelander, who does incredible face acting. But Allison Pill is up there too with just that blank look is just, I wouldn't want to see it. I wouldn't be able to look at her. I'd be able to do it for like maybe a couple of seconds and then I'd be gone. I'd be looking away and probably out of my chair and probably out of the room. Okay, so the fourth section's a big section. This is the big meat. And oh my God, we're 27 minutes in. This is Sergei, after they've failed at their experiment, though, he is still brought in by Forrest to join devs. And this, he comes home to Lily and they resolve this right away, right? Is that this is this huge thing, this huge opportunity. He has to start tomorrow. The security issue is she can never know and he can never, she can never ask and he can never tell. Basically, it's what they agree to. I won't ever ask you about what you do and you just never tell me. And I'm cool with that. And that's actually a pretty, good way to live, I think, if you are in that. It's pretty, but I guess it's probably easier said than done, especially if you don't know what you're getting into, What if you walk in there and you find out that devs is a place where they create little girls that they then chop up for experiments to find a cure for cancer or something, How would you keep that secret? How many little girls are worth, a cure for cancer? Get into that moral, ethical debate, But Zach Grenier, again, scary as hell. With his security interrogation of Sergey. Before he can even get into devs, he has to go through the security process. And this is where we meet Zach Grenier's Kenton. And again, just the dead, like matter of fact, very cop way, very like military-ish way, mind games, head games, the whole act I feel like he's putting on is an act, but not an act. There's like I think there's a level that he goes to, which is this, I can be at this, but I can also like go even deeper into this. And I think that he goes deep on in these things to get to find out and shake people up, to get them to reveal, you know, security flaws. I mean, he's good at what he does. Everybody in this is good at what they do. It's just that they're so good they're scary at it. Because I feel like all these people have they know so much about what they do that it has fundamentally changed them as people. Because there's a lot of that. Like there's like I don't know. But he asks like like I'm concerned about you being Russian and your girlfriend being Chinese. And he's like, why? And yeah, you're right. On the surface, we should all just be cool with who we are. But the reality in this world is that if a Russian and a Chinese person are working for an American computer company and they're both, even if they are, you know, like Lily is actually born here, she's an actual citizen, Sergey's not, and he just like, what do you mean you don't know why I would have a problem with that? There are like it's not a funny show, but there are ways that you can slip humor in to kind of relieve the tension in scenes. And this was a good one because it's like how do you make this kind of fun when this guy, I guess, deadpan serious security guy to nervous Russian guy who may, you know, like is being questioned can be funny uh, a little bit. It's just about a slight tone shift for like a half a beat. There's also the scene where we have the number game, which is they do the Fibonacci sequence. Each number is the sum of the two preceding ones. Man, I didn't know I was gonna have to. Yeah, I had to do like research on math stuff. I hate math. No, math is actually the basically the lock to the secrets of the universe. So I guess I better get on that math. But I feel like the Fibonacci sequence thing, which you can't just throw that out there. I feel like that's definite foreshadowing. I just don't know where that's going to lead to. If anything, maybe it's just to show that she's really, really fucking smart. Um, so Forrest takes Sergey out on the walk to the devs facility. And it's literally through like forest and fields and shit. And the question is, what is devs? I mean, they have things like a lead Faraday shield. They have labs inside an unbroken vacuum seal. They have electromagnetic fields that take you literally above the ground into the room that has never been sealed. What are they doing here? I mean, Forrest is rich, eccentric, and likable. And I guess that kind of goes back to that billionaire thing I was talking about, where they can be all those things, but also, you know, look out. I don't know if they really are like people to, I don't know, if you really are just centered on money and power, yeah, go more power to you, I guess. But this is basically the most powerful computer in the world, more or less, I would say. And of course, Sergey, he wants to know like what is devs, right? Like, but they won't tell him. They want him to figure it out on his own. And they have one rule. And I do really love the sets in here, and it really looks cool. They have one rule: you take nothing in, you take nothing out. When you're there, you can access anything you want, but basically, no backpacks, no cameras, no any of that, blah blah blah. Like, of course, and that all you got to do basically is read the code, figure out when you see what we're talking about, you'll know it when you see it. Very Severance that way. The show Severance. If you haven't seen Severance, watch that show on that is worth getting Apple TV Plus for a month, and then when season 2 comes out, get it again, or time it right so that you can watch Severance season 1 and Severance season 2 in like a month. Anyway, so he's sitting there and he finally sees it. He's very nervous also, but I mean, who wouldn't be? There's all sorts of things that can actually be explained away by the secrecy of what they do. And how would you feel if you were suddenly one day you're just, you're doing this pretty important work, I guess, but you're still whatever in the company. You're not high upper, high level. You might be working on high secret, eyes only stuff, but you're still just a cog in the machine. When all of a sudden you're asked to be a part of in the big game, going from the farm league to the big leagues without even knowing that you had a chance at the big leagues, how would you feel? So when he gets up and he goes to the bathroom and he has this kind of like quiet panic attack and then throws up, you're like, okay. But then he starts messing with his watch. He starts messing with his watch and he starts psyching himself up in the mirror like, come on, come on. And the next time we see him, the watch is out, pointed at the screen, and he just looks all intense like he's reading. Now, Katie sees this, and you go, is she watching him for what he is doing? Or is she watching him because she sees he's panicking, that he's nervous? Because it is a lot, and she would recognize that? Or does she know already what she's going to do and why? That's what I love about watching it a little bit now and trying to catch all those little details. So she comes over and, gives him a glass of water. And he asks her simply, is this code for real? Like, is this theoretical? Does this actually work? Do you guys have like some sort of like you tried something and you now have data that supports this theoretical data? And she says that it's not theoretical data. She doesn't say that it works. So there's like, she's trying to ride the truth and fiction and hope and cope and hoping that it, works. Because he's like, well, if it's true, what you guys are trying to do here, it truly changes everything. And she changes that to no. If what we're doing here is provable, it means that nothing changes at all. And that's the point. And when she says that, okay, they work quantum computing. Then you got quantum mechanics, quantum theory, quantum, all these other things. What does that usually mean? So if you can break down those clues, you can start to see where this is headed, especially kind of how I've been talking a little bit. So at the end of the day, Sergey leaves and again, like a pretty quiet panic. He's moving. He is trying to get out of there. He's quickly walking through the forest to get away. And Forrest is there. The lights go on. The music cue there. That is a straight up horror movie cue, man. Like a very psychological one too. That like kind of like jarring. Like dude is suddenly there. He was already there, and he stands there. And he starts talking about the marble that got pushed. Can't help, basically, like it's been set in motion. It's gonna do what it's gonna do. You could like knock it away, but how would we know that you weren't always gonna do that? Basically, in a sense, that the end result of anything is because of some other prior cause. You could put that to like when people go, well, what caused the Big Bang? And what caused this? And what caused that? There's always some event that is the result of a prior cause. And that he thinks that life is deterministic and that there is this illusion of free will and that you can't even see the tram lines because they're invisible. What's a tram line? I should probably look that up. Okay, so what it says here is that the life we lead with all its apparent chaos is actually a life on tram lines, prescribed, undeviated, deterministic. We fall into an illusion of free will because the tram lines are invisible, and we feel so certain about our subjective state, our feelings, our opinions, judgments, and decisions. It's a line from that Forrest says in the show. So basically, it's like the lines of our life, I guess. And that we're on a road that we just don't get off, but we just can't see those lines. We can't see the predetermination of like, I was always going to get up and go to the bathroom all of a sudden. You know what I mean? Like at this time, it was never going to be any other time until it's messed up and it can fuck up your head. Um, so Sergei's look, you know that he's doing something, right? You already knew about the watch. You knew he's facing it towards the thing. He's caught in the woods. You know at this point he's done something, we just don't know what for sure. But I mean, anybody who's watched anything would know he's spying, and he is Russian. So look, they could pull something out of their ass, and it would suddenly be a third party or fourth party, and not be what we thought, but at the same time be the same exact thing. But the real thing is just this whole interaction about like he's like, this is forgiveness. He already knows that he was going to do this. Okay, if he already knew he was going to do this, how did he know? If this thing, is this the work that they're talking about, that like the provable part of this theoretical stuff, right? Or did they just have a meeting and say, well, we think this guy is going to go this way, and that he didn't really make a decision to betray him, because he starts talking about why we do things, nature versus nurture. He's like, where you lived, how were you treated, the formation of your specific brain, all these things that had to happen to get you here, so that you could only have done what you did. Cause, effect, nature, nurture. So for some reason he needed this preamble, and I think just to be fucking scary, and to throw out even some more information about, maybe to understand why you're about to die. And that maybe by knowing why you're about to die, as much as it's going to suck to die, know that it was for a greater purpose, that we're trying to determine the undeterminable, basically. And that what they're trying to map here is pretty clear. To know anything that anyone's ever going to do. Ever. But there is more to it than that, and that's why I don't mind saying that here. So when Sergei runs and Kenton traps him, knocks him down, holds him down, puts a plastic bag over his head, which is like, with all the technology they're surrounded by, right? When it comes to like just taking out someone, it's as simple as just a human body and a plastic bag and some weight differential to keep somebody down. And then you have to just keep the secret because you got three people there. Forrest, Kenton, and Katie walks up. But to be just strangled in a, so simply, like, you know what I mean? Like, they're involved in such complex stuff, and it's not simple when you involve killing somebody and then having to cover it all up because this person had friends, family, who knows what else could be coming. And then you go the cost of progress. Like, okay, so Sergei's a Russian spy. Okay. Is the information that they're theoretically messing around with, is it, how many people is it we're killing for that know it? How dangerous is this information? And if the information is so dangerous, I should say, then why are we messing with it? Well, it's because, human beings, man, well, we're kind of known for blowing ourselves up, aren't we? At the same time, because we're now in part 5, and this is basically everything that leads up to Sergei's death is like, boom, all the huge meat. And then after we get like, it kicks off the investigation that runs through the rest of the series. It is funny though that Lily's reading Colossus by Dennis Jones, which is about supercomputer takeover. But Sergei never comes home. And knowing that he, but understanding, and again, good plotting, good story work, knowing that like this guy has this job and it's a dream job for people like them, it's not, shouldn't be looked at as abnormal for him to not be home yet. And it's also not going to be, shouldn't be strange that he can't get a phone call because of where he is. But when he doesn't come home in the morning, she gets upset and goes and talks to Kenton at the security, where he has camera footage of Sergei walking and then walking and then walking some more and then not staying at the bus stop and starts walking towards the highway. Why would he do that? Well, I mean, right off the bat, that would be the first strange question: is why wouldn't somebody wait for the bus? Why would they suddenly start walking away? It speaks to something being wrong with that person, which doesn't make the situation better, especially since they're missing, and since we know as audience members he's motherfucking dead, and we know that that's not him. So we know that they've doctored this footage, and they're trying to fool people who would be able to see through it. I think. So they've got to make it believable, not just on the technological end, but because I don't even think I think that's actually the weak part. I think that the part that they have to try to sell is the personal, and to make sure that like whatever happens, nobody's going to suspect them. Especially since they're some of the last people to have ever seen him alive. But she's upset because she just sees him going through the motions, that he's walking purposeful like a zombie who just wants brains, just heading forward in a straight line, no real direction. I guess that's not purposeful to me. I mean, they don't really know what they're doing. It's a purposeful gait towards something without any real knowing why you want to go, why you want, like, I don't think they know why they want brains. They just go towards it. um Oh, and going through the motions, I meant that the security. They're talking to the cops. They're asking the right questions of the right people, and who's, you know, we are a concerned company, and I mean they're not Coca-Cola, they're not Nestle, they're not Gatorade or whoever, or Starbucks or fucking Apple or fucking whoever, um, but they are still a corporation, and their corporate security is they're playing ball. They're basically like the first act of a Law and Order episode where they have the cops coming like, oh yes, no, we I know it was his first day, and we don't really know the guy, and blah blah blah, knowing full well that you're probably dealing with one of the killers. And in this case both of them. So Law and Order's right. No. Anyway, she tries to get into Sergei's phone, and I do like this kind of like perched on the back of somebody's shoulder with the knowledge of like we know what happened, and watching them have to try to piece together the mystery of everything that's going on, and the real history. I mean, because it's her finding out the true story about her boyfriend and what that means. I mean, like, did he love her? How much was he trying to get from her? But she doesn't know all that yet, right? But she can't figure out how to get into his phone, and she finds Sudoku. She knows that he hated Sudoku. So why does he have Sudoku that's password protected, and also if you put in the wrong password, it will say that it's going to wipe all the data. Wah, wah. So that's a big old flag for, I think, a software engineer. The forest is in the like out in the fields where all the pylons are, I guess the Faraday shields. And he looks like Offerman in this scene looks so distraught. It is it's that is some. Now we're talking about face work. Holy crap! I mean, he looks like he was holding his breath for like 5 minutes to get his face that red and his eyes that bloodshot. So basically, what I'm saying is that killing Sergei wasn't something that didn't impact him. We talked about the disconnect, but that this guy is like a granola eating, like deep in his heart, he's a hippie who's trying to do something that he finds is good, and for what end purpose? Well, like I said, there's a little girl statue in the woods. Figure it out. So he's trying to do something that he thinks is like right and purposeful and will lead to greater changes and all that stuff. The big old ideas, and that one Russian spy shouldn't affect, having to kill one Russian spy shouldn't affect them, but it does. And it's the way that they say that, like when Allison Pills Katie says that this shouldn't be hard, but it is. Because they're thinking like logically, this one guy shouldn't fucking matter. We should be able to erase him because in history he'll be just a path to what we had to get to where we are now. and that we're hardwired magical thinkers. And this is true. And I love that way to put it. Hardwired magical thinkers. The most rational person in the world will suddenly start praying if their kid gets hurt. And I was like, damn, that is absolutely freaking correct, man. That is so spot on. So, Jamie, we're introduced to him, who's played, I said his name earlier. Damn it. I'm not going to go all the way back. Oh, yes, I can. Hey, what do you know? Every once in a while, technology works in your favor. Played by Jin Ha, who is, of all people, Lily's ex. And she's there for his help. But we have to get a little exposition out of the way. We got to get some background out of the way. We need a scene that understands why is she talking to him? Who is this guy? And what is his overall purpose going to be? We get all that in one scene. Which is, they have to cover the personal. So when he was dating her, they had been dating for a while. They lived in their own place. It was very serious. She gets the job at Amaya, and suddenly everything changes. And he, sees it, and he knew that this job wasn't her moving forward in life with him. It was moving forward without him. And when he just kind of blithely said, do you think we should break up? She just says yes. And all of a sudden he finds himself without a girl, without a place, just suddenly left out in the cold. And then he hears nothing from her for 2 years. He hears people talk about her and what she's doing and all the, and all the guy that she's with and all these things that she's doing, but he never hears anything from her. She just ghosts his ass and moves on. And now she's coming to him to ask about if he can help her find her boyfriend through tracking his phone, which sounds suspect as fuck because it sounds like just something that somebody, boy or girl or what have you, would do if, like if they were like, I think he's cheating on me, please, like let's track his phone. They work in an industry where, yeah, they know how to do this, but in the end, they're still people. So when somebody does this to you, they're not going to automatically think that this is some kind of tech question that you can get to the bottom of. Like, it does sound like she's just asking for him to help her do something that he is not his responsibility no more. But she says, look, if she had anybody else, she would ask them, but he's the best. So at least she tells him that, right? But he tells her to fuck off. Because honestly, it didn't sound sus. The next day, though, there's a fire. We see a fire in the woods at Dev's overnight in front of the statue. And Lily's called into work. What does that mean? What has happened? In the security footage. And I love the chanting, by the way, that's been like all over this. Just, it's creepy. But there's Sergey, but it can't be. Walking, again, digitally put in there, walking up to the statue, dumping gasoline on himself and lighting his ass on fire in front of everybody. And she won't accept it. And she goes charging out and gives like one of the most like intense scenes of immense grief I have ever seen when she approaches the body of this charred body of who she thinks is Sergey. But it might be Sergey's body, but that wasn't him that got lit on fire. So how'd they do it? Again, we've all, at this point, if you're above the age of 30, I'd say you, at least maybe a little bit younger, if you've watched any like CSIs and things like that, we all know like all the different ways, if you've seen enough movies, how this could be, how they easily, by the way, make it look easy to just cover up all these things. But we know it. She won't accept it. And then the very last shot is Forrest looking out the window, and there's the daughter statue staring at his face like this is why you're doing this. Like, is he looking at it to say, this is why I do it? Or is he looking at it like, damn it, this is why I do it. I have to do this. And if I like that heavy weight that's on him of the sake of getting what I want done, the sake of furthering us with this information. And now I've got to carry the weight of killing this person. And now I got to carry the weight of all the people that are grieving for the death of that person, knowing that it's all for this and for what. So and that's the way the first episode ends. And I can't believe I talked like this long. And again, I said it was probably going to be longer, and it always gets shorter after the fact, and they always usually get better, hopefully. All right. I know I always struggle with first episodes because partially it's like, I don't know when to stop talking sometimes. And I know that somebody will say, well, that's all the time. But usually I can go on a train of thought and go pretty far and still stay on the tracks. But in these kind of situations where I'm talking about something I haven't talked about or I'm used to talking about, this is where I struggle. So hopefully this was entertaining at the most. I hope that you guys really enjoyed it. And I swear to God, I hope I didn't just I think I accidentally pressed pause for a second. But so if you missed anything, it's because I'm nervous. So anyway, we are going to be back with Devs episode 2, hopefully within a week of you guys seeing this one. I don't want to spend 8 weeks with it. I'm going to try to do 1.5, that kind of thing, if you know what I'm saying. Like, I'm going to try to do 2 a week, but it might be like 3 every 2 weeks. Like maybe, like 3 every 2 weeks, somewhere split the difference in the middle. But hopefully we can have this show covered in about a month or so. I hope you guys like it. Don't forget to hit like and subscribe. Adam, thanks again for suggesting this. It's like he's reading my mind though, because I was thinking about this show too, not long before he asked about it. So get out of my head. No, just kidding. Well, no, I don't want anybody in my head except for me. So anyway, have a great day. We'll be back with more devs revisiting this interesting show. Have a great day. Be good to each other. And bye.